Hello, and welcome to the ATPE podcast, brought to you by the Association of Texas Professional Educators and covering the hottest topics on Texas educators' minds today.
Hello, and welcome to the ATPE podcast. My name is David George, and I serve as the editor for ATPE News Magazine. Today, we're going to have multiple guests on the program to discuss teacher recruitment and retention issues. And our first guest today, we're really excited to have our engagement and learning specialist, Andrea Hutlock, returning to the program.
Hello. Thank you for having me, David. Excited to be here.
It's great to have you back.
I'm glad to be back.
So I want to start by asking you to kind of give us an idea of what the recruitment and retention landscape looks like, because I know in the most recent magazine, we had an article on filling teacher vacancies that really talked about both sides of that issue. And I know that through your professional learning column, you've also addressed this.
Yeah, so the most recent ATPE News had the article Filling Vacancies, which highlighted some of the innovative ways that districts are recruiting teachers, filling those vacancies, so to speak, right? But what I think really came out of that article as we delved into, the variety of ideas coming from people across the educational landscape of Texas is that it isn't so much a recruitment issue as it is a retention issue. And I think that goes back to what I've said in prior articles around how are we making this profession sustainable? The landscape has changed so much over the last few years, whereas previously teachers were coming into the profession after they concluded their learning or education around teaching, being in the classroom, best practices. And now we have so many across the state that are looking at those different pathways to becoming a certified educator. And as a result, we have many more coming into the profession, I believe, just in my experience, that are simultaneously just entering a educator preparation program or alternative certification, or even a grow your own program. So there's just a variety of pathways now, and so it becomes much more apparent that it's about retention and making the profession sustainable.
Let's talk for a moment about what it takes to make an early career educator proficient at teaching.
So someone coming into the profession, we know that there are some qualities of a highly effective teacher, right? Something that they must possess in order to be successful in the classroom. And those are a set of foundational skills that even behind the content and the best practices for the teaching and learning itself are these foundational skills of really being able to manage the classroom environment. So those foundational skills of what are the procedures and routines that I'm following and setting up? What is the classroom culture that I'm establishing with my students? And that is just going to vary so much depending upon the campus and the location that a teacher is beginning her career, right? So I think there is a multitude of things that teachers need today to be successful, but it has to begin with the foundational skills of knowing how to manage a classroom environment, of organizing that learning environment, and setting up a classroom culture that is going to allow you to then teach the content, differentiate the content, and engage the learners in the room.
What can you tell us about the newest generation of teachers and their needs in the classroom?
So I've spent the last several years really supporting a lot of early career educators. Those are educators that are in their first 3 years of teaching, and many of them might be transitioning from another profession, or this is their first career. Maybe they're coming as a background of being a paraprofessional or some other sort of education position that is now allowing them an opportunity to want to move forward and become a certified classroom teacher. And so as part of this pathway and entering the profession, as a first-year teacher, in order to develop these qualities, in order to develop the confidence, in order to manage and so many times go through trial and error and research and really be that, takes so many more hours in those first few years than what it does for a veteran educator. I know the National Education Association had a report a couple years ago where they said that the average early career teacher spends 54 hours a week preparing. I think that's a minimum. I think that's a baseline. I think we have so many educators that are very much upwards of that in order to be successful in the first few years if we're not taking anything off their plate. And that is to say that there are opportunities within education for us to look at those first-year teachers and say, what are those things that we could take off of their plate that are not necessary maybe in the first few years to give them the time and space to develop before they take on those additional responsibilities. And so many times we don't do that because we view it as an equity issue, and if their teammates are doing it, then they should also be doing it. But those teachers that are more established and become veteran, yes, they're spending many hours themselves, but it doesn't require quite the same amount of time and effort that it does in those first few years of teaching. So I know having appropriate mentors, having somebody that really helps you focus on time management is important. But especially with the newest generation of educators coming into the profession, the last few years we've seen so many people really delineate that line between having a work-life balance. So as a result, we're seeing this evolution of a profession where these teachers are setting boundaries for themselves, right? They're saying, this is my profession, this is where it ends, and I value my life outside of that. And as a result, if we're not providing time and space within those hours throughout the day, when we're not taking those extra things off the plate, then many of them are not going to go beyond that to do what's necessary within those first few years to feel confident, to have everything together, which is nearly impossible as it is, even if you are spending those hours. And I don't believe it's necessarily right that they should have to spend those hours as well. I remember doing it when I entered the profession, but is it fair of us to ask them in preparing, especially so many of them that are additionally doing coursework outside of those hours in order to earn their certification, is it fair for us to ask them to take on those additional responsibilities outside of those hours? And if you asked my opinion, I would say no.
And I would agree. Let's talk about the preparation landscape for a moment. What pathways would best prepare a new teacher for the classroom?
I think we've seen a number of pathways evolve. There has obviously, in a post-COVID world, been a rush to find a way to certify educators and to do it quickly. In this profession, while you can successfully complete an alternative certification while also teaching, many of us, myself included, have done that, it requires a lot of effort. It requires many hours in order to be able to do so. And I think you find so many people then becoming burned out that they don't feel like it's sustainable, or maybe they feel like it'll be better the next year, and when it isn't, they're going to give up. So in order to have teachers beyond those first 3 years see this as a sustainable profession, be retained by the district, which is important to them as a district because every time they lose educators, they're going to the expense of recruiting new educators, whereas they can really put these funds into retention, mentoring programs, coaches coming in, helping these educators, administrators thinking creatively about alleviating some of the responsibilities to allow the time and space for these educators to develop are imperative to them being successful. So I do believe like in the article, with some of the local ISDs, Hutto ISD, and I know even Georgetown ISD in Central Texas have recently announced a pathway for paraprofessionals who don't even have a college degree to now go into having their college degree, but simultaneously being employed within the education profession alongside professionals, alongside educators, mentoring, trying things out, which is really kind of, in essence, like a lab school, right? It's giving them the opportunity to come in, practice their skills, learn them, and try the profession over the amount of time before they are the sole educator in charge of the classroom of students there. And I think that's one of the innovative ways, but also most sustainable ways to see educators remain in the profession.
Andrea, thank you so much for all your insight on this important topic, and thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciated being here today as one of the many speaking about ATPE, educators, sustainability, and professional learning. So thank you, David.
Our next guest on the podcast today is ATPE lobbyist Tricia Cave. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me again.
It's great to have you. We're discussing ATPE's advocacy with the teacher preparation landscape, and I want to know, what are we doing to ensure that teacher preparation programs are providing the quality support that new teachers need?
ATPE is very active in making sure that our teachers have consistency and fairness and good ground rules going into the education preparation landscape. So we have several things that we do in the world of advocacy to help teachers in this field. One of the things that we do is we do a lot of coalition building, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. But we are members of a coalition called TCEP that advocates for high quality educator preparation programs. Additionally, we do a lot of advocacy with the legislature to make sure that any new rules or requirements that they are putting forth for new teachers are attainable, fair, measurable, easy for our candidates to be able to complete and understand in the world of a first-year teacher where they have a lot on their plates. And then lastly, of course, we have a major role in ensuring accountability of TEA and ensuring that they are not only doing what they say they're going to do, but also that they're involving stakeholders and that they are staying consistent and fair in the application of rules across the board with all of our teachers.
So you mentioned TCEP, the Texas Coalition for Educator Preparation. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So ATPE is a founding member in the Texas Coalition for Educator Preparation. This is a group that consists of educator associations, educator preparation programs, universities, and groups that include things like admin groups, anybody basically who has anything to do with the pipeline for teacher certification. And it formed a couple of years ago around the issue of the ATPE, which, if you don't know what that is, it is a certification exam. It's a more like a portfolio type thing that would have been used as a certification exam for new teacher candidates. And this group came together to become a force over this issue. And once that issue was successfully defeated, the group realized that they could be a force for good in other areas of educator preparation beyond just ATPE. And so former lobbyist Andrea Chevalier was very instrumental in bringing the group together and helping them to build the coalition that we have now. And what we do now is we help with rule rewrites, standard rewrites with the Texas Education Agency. We're very active with the State Board for Educator Certification. And we just ensure that whatever the pathway a new teacher is going through, they have clear, consistent, fair, concise rules that make sense that are also ensuring a high quality educator in addition to just being fair and consistent.
So what advocacy issues are we, ATPE, addressing that involves teacher certification?
There are several currently that we're working on. One of them is they're currently rewriting the rules for special education teachers. They're rewriting. I'm on a committee called the Special Populations Committee, and our job is to ensure that as they're rewriting these new standards for special education teachers and deciding what certifications these special educators have to have, that they are considering the possible burden on these new teachers and the workload that could be added to their plates. And while we want the best quality teachers we can have, especially for special education, we also want to make sure that we're not driving teachers out of a pathway or out of a field that's already very short, and that we are setting them up for success and not just adding more to their plates. So we're working on that. We are also currently very active with TEA and the SBEC on the new pedagogy standards. Recently, SBEC met and there was discussion about whether lesson design should be taken out of the pedagogy standards and replaced with lesson internalization. And all educators know, even if you memorize your lessons or internalize a document, there's still a large amount of preparation that goes into making sure a lesson is high quality and being able to deliver that well for students. So we are working to make sure that those standards are going to still ensure that new teacher candidates get that instruction in how to build high quality lessons. Additionally, we are working on ensuring that new educator candidates that are coming through the pipeline, when they are being assessed in fair ways across the board consistently. And what I mean by that is that we are having every educator take the same exams and saying, when we present a candidate and say this candidate is ready to teach, that means the same thing across the board. And then lastly, we are addressing the number of uncertified staff and trying to help find pathways to get them certified so that every student has a high quality teacher in their classroom.
What other things do you do other than advocacy?
There's a few. One of the key ones is holding the agency, TEA, accountable. And some of the ways that we do that are through meeting with them, discussing standards, helping rewrite, and then also just holding them accountable for the things that they say and do. So one example of that would be a few weeks ago, the commissioner, Mike Morath, was giving a talk at the State Board of Education. And he made some comments that kind of raised our eyebrows a little bit about educator preparation, about why districts were hiring uncertified teachers. He made some comments like that districts gave up on hiring uncertified teachers after the pandemic. He said that districts no longer value alternative certification programs. And as I was listening to that, I just found that kind of unbelievable that he would say that. There's a lot of factors that go into why the number of uncertified teachers are increasing, and some of that is actually caused by the state and the agency, things like districts of innovation, where we're giving districts permission to hire uncertified teachers, and then we're going, oh, we're so surprised they're doing that. So I did a post on Teach the Vote, which if you're not reading, please read. And I fact-checked some of his comments, and I pointed out the fact that districts do value any program where they can get a high quality certified teacher, and that the reasons why we have uncertified teachers in the classroom are varied and have nothing to do with districts giving up. Districts want to hire the best teachers available for students. So we do a lot of things like that, just holding the agency accountable and making sure that they're involving stakeholders in their discussions as they're writing code and things that are going to affect educators in the classroom.
Well, Tricia, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for all your insight on this very important topic.
Thank you for having me.
Joining us now is Dr. Cynthia Villalobos, who is a ATPE membership specialist, has been for 10 years, and has written a dissertation on teacher retention and how professional organizations can contribute to that. Cynthia, we are so happy to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Will you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. I have been a membership specialist for 10 years. This June, I was a previous volunteer and leader in ATPE. I was a Region 4 officer. I was a Houston ATPE president for a few years and a campus rep before that. So I've pretty much held every role.
So from all your experience and your research, can you talk to us about teacher retention and what is the key?
So from my research and from the research that I did in the beginning of my dissertation, professional organization engagement is key in a couple of fronts. Networking, mentoring, and having that reality-based experience that they're lacking from going from an educator prep program in a university to their first year of teaching. And what I mean by that is that they have all the book knowledge, but once they get out there in their first years of teaching, they're realizing, oh my goodness, there's a gap here. And that's where engagement in professional organizations can bridge that gap or help transition that gap.
Talk to us about what veteran teachers can do to support these early career educators.
Well, there's a lot actually that they can do. So I'm directly talking to veteran educators. When you see a new teacher on your campus, even a student teacher or a clinical teacher, I would even go as far to say, reach out to them. And when I said by mentoring earlier, I didn't mean mentoring like a school district would do a mentoring program, because most school districts have that, but they have like classes, they have lessons, they have book studies, articles that they have to read and things of that nature. And what I'm talking about, what is needed, that is needed as well. But in additional, and what professional organizations can do, and what veteran educators can do, and veteran ATPE members can do, is reach out to those early career teachers and those student teachers and just say, hey, how's it going? Do you need help with X, Y, and Z? Do you know which restroom you can use? Do you know how to use the copy machine? Can I help you do a bulletin board? Are you having any student issues that maybe I can shed some light on? How are you doing with grading? Just someone to be there to ask, like, hey, how are you doing? Like, it's December now. How's it going?
So it's the little things.
It's the little things. It's not creating extra work for that new career teacher or early career educator. It's someone that they can just go, oh my goodness, help. I don't know what to do in this situation. And it's someone that they can reach out to and just say, you know what, I'm having a bad day. I don't know what to do. Or how have you had this parent, or have you had this situation? How can I better reach the student? What can I say to this parent on this issue? It's those little things that you just don't know what you don't know until you're in the thick of it and you're surrounded by a situation that you're like, wow, I didn't learn that at school.
So tell us about what ATPE is doing to support these early career educators.
Well, I know that a lot of our membership specialists are working with university students and with the universities to engage those clinical teachers, those student teachers, those college students and members, and engaging in ATPE. And one of the things that I always tell my university students is come to regional events, come to Summit. You get to look at teachers from all over the state. It's the best place to vet out a school district, because you can talk to people in one location. You can talk to veteran teachers from Corpus, from Houston, from Dallas, from Amarillo, and El Paso in one setting. And you can say, hey, how do you like your school district? How do you like your school? Oh, you're a special education teacher. Well, that's what I'm going to school for. That's what I want to do. Do you have any advice? And so it's that engagement. It's that networking that allows them to kind of learn from others before they even step a foot into their own classroom.
So what else is ATPE doing to help these early career educators?
So something else that we're doing here at ATPE is, aside from the summit sessions where they can come and learn more about ATPE engagement, they can learn from other first-year teachers, where they can just hear from other first-year teachers say, here's what I wish I knew a year ago. We also have Gen ATPE. It's a whole other avenue where we're reaching out to those early career educators and providing resources with webinars and materials and videos to just give them extra little tidbits of information that we feel like they might want or need. Something else that I do personally is whenever I have student teachers that are graduating, I want to know where they're teaching at, because when I find out where they're teaching, I will hook them up with ATPE members on that campus or in that school district. Sometimes they don't know yet where they're teaching at, but once they find out, I like to introduce them to other ATPE members, because as a first year teacher, I was super lucky to where I had ATPE members reach out to me and say, hey, they just kind of took me under their wing and showed me the ropes of what to do, where to park, what foods to eat in the cafeteria, those kinds of things. It seems like it's little things that are insignificant, but it really helps the early career educators who are so stressed out their first year that we can help with small things that will increase their engagement and actually even increase their mental health, because that's one thing that I learned in my research is that the mental health issues and the anxiety issues that come from early career educators is way more than I ever thought it would be.
Interesting. Tell me a little bit about what it is that they're looking for, these early career educators, in a teacher association. What did they need from association like ATP?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because they specifically, and the people that are in my research are ATPE members and non-ATPE members. And even the non-ATPE members wanted the same things from a professional organization. They wanted a networking opportunity. They wanted an unofficial mentor that didn't create extra work for them. They just wanted someone to check in on them. They wanted more resources as far as curriculum help. Ironically, I know salary is a huge thing that comes up, but they weren't really that concerned with salary. That was way low on one of the things that they wanted. It was resources for curriculum, resources for classroom management, but the higher things that they were interested in is that networking and mentoring.
Cynthia, do you have any final thoughts on this teacher retention issue?
As we all know, teacher retention in Texas and nationwide is a huge issue. And I think that we all ATPE members need to be engaged in this topic. All teachers everywhere. And as a professional organization, we need to really address it in any way that we can, because we know that it's a problem. And not only are we losing teachers and it's costing money, but it also affects student their academics. And so it's extremely important that we as an organization do anything that we can. And that's why I feel like as veteran educators, if we could just reach out to those early career teachers and just check in with them, just, hey, how's it going? Their first week of school, even if it's just doing a bulletin board or giving them, hey, I really like this poster here, you can have it for your classroom. Anything that we can do to assist them in their first year and to retain them long term is for the betterment of education everywhere.
Well, thank you so much, Cynthia. We're so glad to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you.
And thank you to the rest of our guests as well. And I just want to tell you that if you have any questions or any feedback, then we would appreciate if you send those to com@atpe.org. That's COMM@ATPE.org. And please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. And thanks for being here, and we will see you again on the ATPE podcast.
Thanks for listening to the ATPE podcast. For more information about becoming part of Texas's largest community of educators, please visit atpe.org.